La da 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 da.
There's a special kind of hell reserved for the middle of the night, a lonely place where shadows whisper tales of past horrors. That's where I found myself, jolted awake in the unforgiving grip of my old nightmares, slick with the sheen of a cold sweat. My apartment, normally a dim refuge nestled in the city's underbelly, felt more like a cage, trapping me with my demons. I thought I was over this. I muttered into the oppressive darkness. Scenes from my nightmares played out in my mind, a twisted theater of trauma, the kind that seeps deep into your bones and never quite lets go. My past was a spectre I couldn't shake, an unending well of despair. Across the room in the grim pallor of the city's scant moonlight, the detritus of my last case, fear and hunger, glared back at me. A video game. Figures I'd find myself investigating an industry I know next to nothing about. It was a leap of faith, a desperate grasp at something down anything sit that might restore my faith in humanity. A fool's errand, some might say. But even fools need something to believe in. The tick of my own despair. Curling back into the rusted springs of my lousy excuse for a bed, I drift back to sleep, but my dreams are as forgiving as a loan shark. Back on the night train, I'm no longer myself, but a man named Osar, a middle-aged scholar with a hankering for the unknown and a bad case of rebellion. It's my obsession with power that drives me away from home, away from sanity. My guide on this doomed quest is a floating spectre named Nasra, a relic from a bygone era, a power-hungry wizard with a bone to pick. He promises me wisdom and revenge. I'm a moth drawn to his arcane flame, drawn to the crumbling town of Prehevil, a name that reads like a grim punchline to a joke the universe is playing on me. As the train lurches to a stop, I find myself alone amidst a sea of luggage. The air is heavy, the darkness outside the door thicker than the fog rolling over the San Francisco Bay. One step after another, I venture into the void, finding myself transported not to the station, but to a twisted workshop. It's no place for mortal men run by a beast of a man, a savage with an unholy symbol carved into his back. Moonscorch, we call it in my studies. A curse, a mark from an old god. As I bend to his will, carving bizarre cubes under his watchful, I dub him the janitor. We're not alone in this hell. A little girl, innocence marred by the madness, signals me to escape. But luck's a fickle mistress. The janitor sees me. His joy at the chase is a wild thing, as fierce and unforgiving as the blade he wields. I race for the door, hurtling into an abyss, emerging atop a high tower, face to face with a man wearing a mask. Or is it? A sense of dread washes over me even before he speaks. This strange man, this Perkel, is a mouthpiece for Re, the old god himself. His words are laced with venom, a deadly game, a festival of death to decide the last man standing. It's a sadistic dance, played out with a veneer of grandeur, presented as a game of chance and survival. The very thought of it makes my blood run cold. Then, like the snap of fingers, I'm awake again, but not in my usual haunt. I'm back on this iron beast, this godforsaken train. The fragments of that dream echo inside my skull, and I'm filled with a strange sense of purpose. Re, the moon god. He's under my skin, in my mind, a ghost in my soul. As the train grinds to a halt at Prehevil, I step off, only to find the other souls on board huddled in conversation. I strain to see their faces, but the swirling fog is a shroud. The whispers grow louder. The train drivers vanished. We're out here in no man's land. The panicked murmurs grow, every theory more outlandish than the last. The war had overtaken Prehevil, the track sabotaged, the driver a deserter. Amidst the chaos, a familiar thread catches my attention. A fellow passenger recounting the same nightmare I had. Others chime in, their dreams mirroring my own. The realization hits me like a 2-ton truck. Re, Termina. It's all real. The grand finale. A dance macabre to decide the last man standing. The chance to commune with a deity, it's like nothing I've ever imagined. As if on autopilot, I retreat back into the train to mull over this revelation. That's when I spot her, a young girl, an angel playing with the devil's tools. Her doodles, they're not child's play. They're dark, ritualistic. She's onto the game, her innocent act a poor guy's. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and I ain't on the menu. Her facade crumbles as I charge at her. Her terror-stricken face morphs into a menacing snarl, her arms outstretched as if to invoke some dark spell. I'm a member of the Yellow Mages. I can smell a death curse a mile away. I don't grant her the satisfaction, cutting her down until she's no more than a lump of lifeless flesh. As my final blow lands, I feel Rare's approval wash over me, one down. Just as I'm basking in my victory, I'm caught off guard. A stranger grabs me from behind, his words laced with accusations. I try to shake him off, but they come in droves, overwhelming me. I wake up bound and gagged, seemingly abandoned. I languish there, minutes stretching into hours, hours into days. Even Nasra, that worthless apparition, has forsaken me. I'm alone, swallowed by darkness, gnawed by hunger. As consciousness slips away, I realize I might not be waking up this time. So yeah, hold your horses. What?
Where are you, Morgan?
Given you're calling my home, I'd say it's obvious where I am.
You're late, again, and we have a meeting to discuss.
All business as usual, Pixel. Indie games, a testament to human creativity. Art, music, storytelling, level design, game mechanics, programming. Years of honing skills, seamlessly woven into one masterpiece. There's got to be something there worth unearthing.
Come in, Morgan. I've read your file on Fear and Hunger, Termina, and there's something missing. Fear and Hunger. Termina is an unusual hybrid, marrying RPG and survival horror. It's a unique beast, featuring a turn-based dismemberment combat system, strategic planning, and resource management. Its unforgiving world makes it a challenging endeavor, rewarding those who dare to brave it. The world design is open-ended, allowing players the freedom to face the game's horrors in any way they deem best. A time-sensitive mission amps up the tension with just 3 days to explore and accomplish objectives while the world evolves and characters pursue their own agendas. 8 playable characters each bring their unique playstyles and storylines to the table, allowing for a rich diversity of experiences. All these elements are rendered in pixelated art, accompanied by a hauntingly original soundtrack. So, Morgan, what makes these game mechanics successful? Why do people find them enjoyable?
See, Pixel, you're missing the point. Fun isn't born solely from game mechanics. Those are just trails leading to your target audience.
The mechanics are what make a game stand out, Morgan. They're what make a game unique, what make a game fun.
On the surface, sure. But trust me, if you want the secret recipe for a successful game, you have to dig deeper.
All right, Morgan, I'll indulge you. You've got a minute.
The irony of being hired for a fresh perspective, only to have that perspective dismissed, is probably the only laugh I've had today. You see, Pixel, the game isn't about baiting the vast ocean of 750 million RPG enthusiasts. It's about casting the line for those select 1.5 million aficionados who savor the distinct flavor of indie RPGs.
Hunting in a niche market. Understood.
Do you, Pixel? It's not just about capturing a niche. It's about decoding the desires of that niche. Look at Fear and Hunger, Termina. They didn't just slap together an RPG with survival and horror elements. They delved deep into the psyche of their players, creating a unique, innovative experience.
And how did that gamble pay off?
Better than you'd think. They may not have swayed the masses, but with a humble gross earning estimate of $500,000, that's a decent haul for a solo 4-year venture.
$125,000 a year. That is before deducting all the expenses. It seems hardly worth the effort.
Sure, it's no windfall, but they built something singular, something special. They carved out their own space in a market teeming with behemoths. They played their hand well. That's what we need to do, Pixel. Not just crunch numbers, but delve into the soul of our players, delivering an experience that resonates.
But Morgan, how can we do that and still turn a profit?
We use the numbers as our guiding star, Pixel, not our path. We start with a popular genre like RPGs, add a unique spin to it. Then we tune into our players, adjust our game based on their...
That sounds more like a gamble, Morgan.
Isn't that what innovation is? A gamble? If we play it safe, we fade into the crowd. And where's the profit in obscurity? They started with a broad canvas, RPG, then smeared it with a unique hue, survival horror. Threw in a few trending elements like open world, timed missions, unique combat mechanics, and what have you. Voila, a masterpiece that stands out.
Open-world games are all the rage, sure, but they cost an arm and a leg.
Observe closely, Pixel. They built a compact open world, which could be unimpressive to some. But the ticking clock, the 3-day game limit, created a sense of urgency, a largeness. A neat trick to implement an open-world experience on a shoestring budget. Add the replay value of a roguelike game, a wide variety of playable characters, each with unique skills. NPCs with their routines changing every day. It's a small world teeming with life. All the game mechanics work in harmony to create a gaming experience as wide as an ocean and as personal as a love letter.
All right, I catch your drift, Morgan. They began broad. RPG added a twist. Survival horror. Threw in some popular mechanics, open world, time-sensitive missions, and unique combat. Made a splash in the market. But I'm still not convinced, Morgan. These are just ideas. What we need is a foolproof recipe, a formula for success. How do we translate these insights into a repeatable model for success? That's the game I want to win.
You got to see the entire game. It's like a delicate dance with the players, needing to pull at their heartstrings.
Morgan, honestly, the only spectacle I'm keen to witness is the dance where my dollar bill slides into her lacy garter.
You don't get it, Pixel. A game ain't just a blueprint. It's an expression of the human soul. It's art.
Maybe hiring a washed-out old gumshoe like you was a mistake, Morgan. I can smell the scotch on your breath from here.
Should have known better than to deal with a cold, calculating corporation like you. You'll never understand the heart of indie games. I'm done here.
Morgan! I've played Fear and Hunger Termina.
And?
Come closer and I'll tell you all about it.
Spill the beans, Emma. I've got to go.
Well, the game started with a strange proposition. You see, Perkle introduced me to the strange festival of Termina. The expectation? Sacrifice all the train passengers or face the consequences after the festival's 3-day span.
Yes, Perkle, who is Rhea servant, tells you how you have 3 days to sacrifice everyone. Anything else that everyone does not know?
I can tell you're in a hurry, Morgan. Let me tell you about the most memorable part. I continued my trek to Prehevil, praying for safety, but was met with another terrifying scene. The woodsman was towering, with ghostly white skin, donning nothing more than a trench coat, leaving nothing to the imagination. He approached his victim wielding an axe, toppling him to the ground. The victim wasn't begging for mercy, but making peculiar grunting noises. His skin was as white as the woodsman's, but seemed to be peeling off his face, an eye missing as though melting away. I hid, allowing me to witness the ensuing carnage. The woodsman ruthlessly decapitated his victim with his axe. As I pondered this harsh reality, I realized I needed to hide before the man-monster noticed me. I dove into a nearby well. There I was, trapped at the bottom of a well. The air was heavy, dank, but safer than facing decapitation. After waiting for the woodsman to leave, I attempted to climb out, but the walls were too slick. Panicking, I tried again and again to no avail. I was stuck. With no way out, my only option was to cry for help. I yelled, and after my screams were met with silence, I yelled louder. Finally, a response. Another passenger. As he searched for something to help me, another presence approached. I heard screams and a thud, and then the salaryman's severed head plummeted down the well, soon followed by his torso. I thought this was the end. Suddenly, a rope was lowered. I hesitated, considering whether what awaited me above was worse than my current situation. With no better option, I climbed the rope. At the top, the woodsman sat, staring at the remains of his latest victim, not appearing hostile. I decided to ignore him, entering the house in search of resources for what would surely be a long journey. Her house was in ruins, only old moldy food was left. One thing stood out, a basement door, heavily chained. Overcome by curiosity, I confronted the woodsman about it. He rose, his eyes reverting to their murderous glint. A fierce battle ensued. Amid the flurry of swinging axes and fire spells, a momentary lapse in judgment resulted in the woodsman severing my left arm. Blood spurted, and as I screamed in pain, he cut off my right arm. Realizing I had no time to tend to my wounds, I looked back to him. His appendage moved with a life of its own, his grotesque organ lunging for my face. I dodged and channeled my remaining energy into a fire spell, finally subduing the woodsman. As I gathered myself, I realized I was done for. Blood was gushing, and I had no way to stop it. In my final moments, I conjured a spell to take the basement keys from his pocket and approached the basement door. I may be dying, but at least I would uncover the secret behind the door. Descending the stairs, I saw a blood trail merging with my own. Strangely, I felt a sense of belonging amidst the gore. With the last of my strength, I followed the trail to a room where an old woman sat alone in the darkness, staring at a ritual marking on the ground. As I neared her, my lifeblood drained away, and I took my last breath inside the sacrificial circle. It seemed as if I was destined for this all along. Honestly, I don't know if that was fun to me, but it was definitively shocking and memorable.
Shocking and memorable? I'll remember that.
Bye, Morgan.
That profit-obsessed corporate leech. He wouldn't know the soul of a game if it danced in front of him. Maybe I should have stayed in retirement, working as a private investigator for this capitalist monstrosity just to support my passion. It's a deal with the devil. Ah, the soup den, my speck of solace in this dismal, despair-ridden world. A shot or two should keep the demons at bay.
One of those days, Morgan?
Make it a double, sweetheart. Today's storm needs more than an umbrella.
You got it. So what stirred the hornet's nest today?
It's Pixel. He's got me hounding indie game developers for his precious secret formula of success. The man's perspective is as narrow as a bullet. He thinks there's a cookie-cutter solution. Life's not like that. It's complicated.
You know, you could find someone else who needs a PI. Someone less corporate?
It's not that easy, Jane. You don't get it.
Then help me understand, Morgan. What's the big picture?
A long time ago, I lost something. Something that made me. Me. When it went, it took the rest of me with it. Now, I'm just a shell of a man, an echo of who I once was. But there's something about these indie games. They feel human, real, alive. They give me hope. And then people like Pixel, they come in and strip it all away for a quick buck.
But Morgan, why keep working for him? Why not walk away?
There's one thing that always calls the shots, Jane. Money. I need it to keep digging through these indie treasures. It's a rotten bargain, but what choice do I have?
So, what's the game of the hour?
It's an indie survival horror RPG called Fear and Hunger, Termina.
Did I hear you say F and H, Termina? Don't ruin it with guides. It's not about the horror. It's all about the journey.
My buddy got me that game. It was hell. A living nightmare. But I'd give it 10 out of 10. Now figure that one out.
Imagine if Kentaro Miura and Clive Barker had a love child. That's Fear and Hunger. Brutal, bloody, nightmarish, and absolutely unputdownable.
This time, I survived a round without getting defiled.
Seems like the savagery is part of the allure, Jane. It's captivating in its brutality. It's a form of escape, as twisted as it sounds.
People seek escape wherever they can find it, Morgan. Even in the midst of their darkest nightmares.
I've got a lot to ponder, Jane. Tonight's given me a fresh perspective.
Take care, Morgan. There's always a stool here with your name on it.
I'll remember that, darling. The door creaks open, and I'm back in my sanctuary, the dimly lit tomb I call home. The keys hit the table with a clatter, but I'm already reaching for the comfort of that whiskey bottle. The burn is a bitter friend, familiar and unforgiving, but it's the face in the frame that really twists the knife. My family, frozen in time, my boy's voice echoing in my head. A ghostly whisper. It's been 3 years, Dad. You need to let it go. The world spins and I'm back there, that night. The twisted metal, the screams, another gulp of that liquid oblivion. And I stagger, trying to outrun the memory. But it's always there, lurking in the shadows. I collapse onto the bed, my mind a whirlpool. The case, that damned game, fear and hunger. What's the secret? Why's it got the indie crowd in a frenzy? I feel like I'm circling the truth, always a step behind, like a dog chasing its tail. And Pixel, that capitalist shark, expecting me to dissect it, to lay it bare for his greedy eyes. The weight of it all presses down on me, and I wonder how I'm going to make it pay. The room starts to dim as sleep edges closer, and a parade of images flickers through my mind.
Fear and hunger. Termina is an unusual hybrid, marrying RPG and survival horror.
Honestly, I don't know if that was fun to me, but it was definitively shocking and memorable.
Clues, connections.
It was hell. A living nightmare, but I'd give it 10 out of 10.
Fragments of a puzzle that refuses to be solved.
People seek escape wherever they can find it, Morgan, even in the midst of their darkest nightmares.
How do we translate these insights into a repeatable model for success?
Then, like a slideshow, it all fades, and I'm sinking into the dark. The fog in Prehevil hangs thick, like the smoke in a backroom poker game. As I emerge from some nondescript doorway into the murk, I feel the weight of the dream realm pressing in, its atmosphere heavy with menace. Ahead, a fallen steed lay cold in the alley, an omen, perhaps, of the dangers lurking nearby. Not far from it lay its master, a soldier. But why here? Wasn't the front line miles away? His life had been snuffed out prematurely, but his pocket diary might hold some clues. Before I could examine it, the eerie silence was shattered by a soft shuffling behind me. There, bathed in shadow, stood one of the cursed villagers of Prehevil, his gaze unrelenting. Scythe in hand, he stepped toward me, the promise of danger clear in his gait. No dice, I thought, not today. With adrenaline pumping, I dashed towards the nearest refuge. The first door betrayed me, locked tight, but Lady Luck smiled down as the second gave way, granting me a momentary sanctuary. The room was a mess. Looked like it hadn't seen a broom or care in years. In its center was a bed, worse for wear but better than the alley. Before I could catch my breath, the all-too-familiar shuffle echoed. The villager was back. In the dim light, I saw the gleam of a pipe, swinging straight for me. My instincts kicked in, a quick sidestep, and my blade sang through the air, severing his armed hand. But he didn't flinch. Instead, he lunged, a bear trap in hand, aiming to snap me up. With another swift move, I sidestepped, hearing the jaws snap shut inches from me. My blade danced once more, but the villager remained unfazed. Desperate, I threw a handful of broken glass at him, hoping to blind the monstrosity, but it was no use. The signs of the moon's curse were evident, his eyes already lost to the affliction. With a surprising speed, he was on me, clawing, overpowering. As my vision blurred, the last thing I felt was the sickening thud as I was thrown into pain. Ebbed as darkness crept in, but not before I heard the snorts and grunts of hungry swine approaching. My last sensation was the cruel irony of the situation. A detective, lost in a dream, becoming nothing more than a feast for pigs in an alley. I awoke, the aftertaste of the dream realm still sour in my mouth. What kind of twisted show is this? I murmured, the room echoing my confusion. Why are the masses so entranced by this dark carnival ride of a game? The chatter, the art, the devotion, it's as if they're under some spell. The shadows on my office walls seem to dance, mocking me. There's something deeper, something lurking beneath, they whispered. No more chasing shadows. It was time to face the maestro behind this macabre symphony. Miro Haverinen, the puppeteer pulling the strings of fear and hunger. If anyone had the answers, it was him.